Civil War, directed by Alex Garland, came out this weekend. And it stars Kirsten Dunst, Wagner Moura, Cailee Spaeny, and Stephen McKinley Henderson. And basically, it is about civil war breaking out in the United States in a relatively modern day or near future. When I first saw the marketing material for this, the first trailers, I was a little bit nervous for this film. It's A24. I really like A24 generally, but it was an A24 film that seemed from the trailers to be of a different scale than A24 films usually are. Typically, A24 films are smaller indie films. The trailers for this movie, before I saw it, gave me a much larger scale of a movie for Civil War. It's more of a war movie, so there's a lot more set dressing. It's like city warfare, so there's like buildings blowing up, stuff like that. So it seemed larger scale when I first saw the marketing material for this movie. That made me a little nervous because, like I said, that larger scale deviates a little bit from what A24 is typically doing, what they typically grab a hold of as far as what they produce and what they sell. So I was a little nervous for that reason. I was also a little nervous because I couldn't quite decide when I was watching the trailers if this was going to be an epic film or a cheesy film. Because I like A24, I kind of lean toward the side of epic. But I could definitely see a world in which it ended up being really cheesy or cringy. So I was hoping it wasn't going to be that, but I was nervous going into this film. The larger scale for an A24 film, and just the possibility that it could lean toward the cheesy side of movies. I went to see it today, and I'm going to give you my initial reaction. I literally saw it like half an hour ago. So let's talk about it. So right away, the thing that I appreciate about this film is that for as political as it could have been, since it is about a civil war in the United States, a civil war that is spurred on by the secession of what seems to be California and Texas, it could have been very political. They did a really good job, I thought, of staying kind of apolitical, not really drawing too many direct comparisons between any particular side and any particular political party. The reason I think it did that so well is because of the angle of the story. Basically, you're following 3 or 4 war photographers basically documenting the Civil War in the United States. And I think taking that approach, telling the story from the perspective of journalists or the press or war photographers, generally they're supposed to be a little bit more neutral. They're supposed to tell a story. Hopefully that story is neutral. It's not taking sides. It's documenting what is happening. And so because the film was approached in that way, they stayed pretty politically neutral. And I appreciated that, because if it had taken sides one way or another, that strongly tied to a current real political party, I think that could have been a problem. I heard this criticism, I guess, from a lot of the trailers. People were like, well, the Texas and California would never join forces. That's so unrealistic. That could be a device to not make it political, because in reality, yeah, it would be kind of unlikely that the politics of Texas and California would align. Although I will say California has a GDP that's, bigger than some countries in the world. And then Texas has probably an arsenal of small and big arms that would supply a pretty decent army. So those two combining would be strategic. So let's talk about the performances. Honestly, I haven't seen Kirsten Dunst in anything, I don't think, since like the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, where she was Mary Jane. I thought she did very well. She played the part very well. If I had to describe this film, I would say it's a mixture of a war film and the film Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal, because these people are war photographers, so there has to be a certain level of like just kind of stone cold deadness when they're photographing what they're photographing, because realistically they're photographing people dying, people in deep tragedy, and they have to be at least somewhat unaffected by that to get the shot that they're going for. And so Kirsten Dunst in the beginning of the film plays that very well. Kind of, she cares, but she's also cold because she needs to be. Wagner Moura as her male counterpart, Joel, in the movie. He also does well. He's a little more charismatic. He's a little more kind of happy-go-lucky, a little more light of a character, I would say. He plays that well, but then there's also some emotional moments for him that I think he does really well in too. I was really impressed by Cailee Spaeny playing Jessie in this movie. I don't know that I've ever seen her in anything prior to this, but she had some really emotional scenes where she had to really emote quite hard and show some real emotions of fear and sadness, just kind of panic at times, and she did really well with that. I really enjoyed her character. Jesse Plemons was kind of a standout from all the trailers. There's this scene where he's wearing a pair of kind of iconic red sunglasses, and he has a shorter scene in this movie, but it's a really good scene. I was quite pleased with the scene that he's in. Nick Offerman as the President of the United States, he was good. He wasn't really in too much of the movie, but he was good in the scenes that he was in. And then Stephen McKinley Henderson is also really good, just kind of as a more reasonable, seasoned voice. Something that was interesting to me about this film is I went into this film expecting that it was going to be something akin to All Quiet on the Western Front, where it was a cautionary tale to say you do not want to be in this situation. War is hell. You do not want to get into a civil war. I think that was less the focus of the film, although I think it certainly can be that. I mean, there are some very effective, just bleak contrasts between what we know currently as the United States being a more successful, opulent, influential country, and just kind of the horror of what that would look like if things went south. But I don't think that cautionary tale is the main story. I think the main story really is just about these press people, and it's a journey for them, an investigation, if you will, into humanity and how they react to tragedy and how they deal with something this chaotic, this grave, this terrifying. Less the cautionary tale that I thought it was going to be, and more just an exploration of how humans would deal with tragedy, with fear, with conflict like this. Like I said, it certainly can be a cautionary tale specifically to the United States saying don't do this. However, I think that cautionary tale is not the main point of the movie. So what I really liked about the movie was the acting. The acting was very good on everyone's part. Wagner Moura was maybe the only one that was a little weaker for me, but I don't think he did bad. I think it was just the type of character he played that was not as compelling to me at times, but I think he did very well in general. Like I said, Cailee Spaeny was a real standout for me. I really liked her performances. She did very well. Really liked Jesse Plemons' scene, even though it was a small scene. It was very satisfying to me for whatever reason. I don't feel that it had any undesirable lulls or anything like that. I think it was paced very well. Rob Hardy's cinematography I thought was very good. He apparently enjoys working with Alex Garland because I believe he was also the cinematographer for Annihilation and for Ex Machina. But I thought the cinematography was really good. I really appreciated the moments where they took still freeze frames of the action going on as if it were a photo to give you a glimpse through the lens of what these war photographers were seeing. I thought that was really cool. I would say the main two things that stood out to me as potential weaknesses, and the first one is going to be more so me posing a question rather than giving a critique, because this is something I don't know. There was a couple scenes in the movie where I wondered, do war photographers actually get that close to the action that they are documenting? Because in some of these scenes, I mean, they were like right up in the action. I was like, would that really happen? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's a very realistic portrayal, and I just am completely unaware of war photography. I imagine some get very close, but there was a couple points where I was like, would they really be like right there? The second thing that I think is more of a critique, and this could maybe be considered a spoiler, so if you haven't seen the movie, just be aware of that. At the end of the movie, when they finally get to the White House and they go into the White House, I didn't really like the fact that the press were the first ones to realize that, oh, these cars coming out of the White House could be a ploy and we should actually go into the White House because we'll probably find what we're looking for in there. It was a little weird that they were the first ones to kind of think of that, and that they didn't have a like a specific detachment of the armed forces there to, you know, like address that potentiality. And it seemed a little unrealistic that these members of the press would just kind of waltz into the White House that's like an active war zone, just without any kind of protection. It just seemed a little odd to me, the way that played out. But really, that's my only critique of the film. I was very engaged throughout pretty much the whole film. There was just those little things that kind of grabbed my attention. So my thoughts on the film: I thought it was really good. Like I said, I generally like A24, so I kind of thought I would like it, even though I was a little apprehensive at first with the trailers. But it was really good. It was really engaging. I think it was very well acted. I think it was very well shot, and I think it's a really good time in the theater. There's some really, really good moments. I would definitely recommend seeing it in a theater if you can. I would give this one a 20 out of 24. So let me know in the comments what you thought of it. I'm very curious to hear everyone else's opinions. So have a good one.